Hey guys, this is Post-Production Pi, and welcome to Part 8 of the Professional Photoshop Portrait Retouching series on srlounge.com. Now, in this tutorial, we're going to be teaching you guys basically how to retouch the details, and in particular, how to retouch hair and kind of clean up all the stray strands of hair. Now, because this is basically the most difficult portion of our retouch, we've saved it for last because we're going to basically need to use every single one of the previous healing and clone stamp techniques that we went over in the previous tutorials, and we're also going to need to add one additional clone stamp technique to this tutorial. So let's get started, and before we do, let's take all the previous stuff that we did, we're going to merge it onto a new layer. So we're going to do that by hitting Alt Control Shift E, and then we're going to name this layer. That's, by the way, Option Command Shift E on a Mac. We're going to name this layer Part 8, and we're going to call it Hair and Detail Cleanup. Alright, now the first thing I want to do is we're going to start by teaching you guys a new technique of using the clone stamp tool. It's very similar to the lighten technique. Let's zoom in on an image by hitting Alt and scrolling in. We're going to start with this strands of hair, these stray strands of hair up here. Now, just a brief note. Now, having stray strands of hair is kind of part of any image. You want to remove those that are distracting and leave the ones that are kind of just natural and meant to be there. To me, the distracting ones are these ones against the dark suit, the dark background up here to the left, the ones that are kind of sticking out over the green bokeh out area, and the ones that are like over the eye and some of the darker ones in the face and stuff like that. So those are the ones that we want to clean up. We'll leave the subtle ones across the hair left intact. Alright, so what we're going to do is scroll in again on this portion over the suit. Now, this technique would work a lot easier and better if it were shot over a solid colored background, but because this isn't a solid background, we're going to have to do quite a bit of fixing and retooling to make this work. But let's do it. So what we're going to do is we're going to start by selecting the clone stamp tool. Instead of using lighten this time, we're going to use the darken blend mode. Now, the darken blend mode works just the opposite way of the lighten, where basically it takes lighter pixels and it darkens them while leaving darker pixels the same. So let's set up a new preset. What we're going to do is set this time to, let's go, usually when we want to darken, we want to kind of clone out hairs. We're going to probably set this brush opacity to 80 to 100%. We're going to put it 100% because I think it's going to work better on that setting. We're going to leave our size and hardness the same. And then we're going to set this as a new clone stamp preset. So we're going to go darken clone stamp. Now what I want to do basically is I want to select this suit, which is the darker area. We're going to sample from the suit, and we're going to basically paint over the lighter pixels of the hair, and it's going to replace the hair but without affecting the darker areas. So let's do that. I'm going to actually raise my opacity or my hardness just a little bit to 25% because I don't want a completely soft edge, particularly when we get down close to kind of the hair down here. So let's start from the top. We're going to hit Alt, sample from up here. I'm going to follow this line down, and then we're going to start painting in right here. And we're going to kind of follow the same strokes as the suit. You'll notice that it does a good job of replacing the hair, but it's not perfect, and we're going to have to clean up that the area that it kind of leaves in a minute. So again, let's resample right here. We're going to paint right here. Again, it's not affecting the darker pixels. This area right here was resampled from up here, which was darker, and so now when we're doing this, it's not affecting it. So we're going to have to fix that in a minute again. Let's resample again. We're going to go over a similar area, paint, and you'll notice how all the lighter pixels are being affected and they're being darkened to match basically the suit. Again, it's not doing a perfect job, but it's getting it pretty close, and it's doing a decent job. So we can just basically go through and retouch this once we're done. Alright, we're going to do the same thing over here and just kind of retouch this a little bit more. I'm going to increase the hardness of my edge. Let's go up to 65% because as we get close to this bottom piece of the hair, I kind of want to make sure that we're keeping the edge somewhat hard so it's not kind of all soft and feathered like. Alright, and that's about good for this area. Let's start retouching this. So what I want to do to retouch it is we're going to go select our healing brush tool, and this time I'm going to select the flat preset that we created. Remember how we created different basically brush presets for different types of angles? Well, I'm painting on basically a straight line down, and so it makes sense to choose this flat preset for my brush. So I'm going to select a brush size that's larger, that's about the same size of these lines, maybe a little bit larger. And what we're going to do is basically start from the top of one of these lines. We're going to go down, match up the line, and then paint straight down. And then we can paint across a little bit just to kind of, basically it's going to just match up and clone or heal in these stripes on the suit. Do the same thing right here. Again, we're going to match up the lines and paint down and then across to kind of match these lines going down. Alright, we're going to do the same thing over here. You can see how this process takes a little bit of time. If you mess up somewhere, just undo it and start again, or go back to your history palette and check it and redo it. I'm going to go over here and do the same thing. I'm going to go up here, drag down, match up this line as best as possible. If I miss it, I'll just redo it, and then drag to the right a little bit, kind of replace that area. If you get too close to the hair, this is what's going to happen. It's going to do that blend thing again. So we need to undo that and redo that again. So let's just redo that area. Let's not get too close to the hair. And this is fine. I'm going to do up here too. Same thing, as we get close to the edge again, we want to be careful. This is where basically the clone stamp tool in normal mode is going to be the best tool to kind of fix up those kind of close areas. So let's zoom out, make sure it's not really noticeable. It looks fine. The lines are solid, they follow down, and the only area I'm noticing that's slightly strange is this area right here. We're just going to kind of lighten that up a tiny bit. Alright, now let's cover this area right here. For this, we're going to probably be better off just using a clone stamp tool set to normal, and all we're going to do basically is pretty much just paint in where we want this effect to be. Make sure our opacity is 100, flows at 100. We can reduce hardness to probably about 25%, and then we're going to shrink down our brush size. We can use brackets as well. So let's go back to the image. Let's shrink it down a little bit. I'm going to sample from this area right here and just kind of paint in. So let's go from the green, just paint in a little bit. Just paint in, and really just kind of drawing in this shape where we want it to be. Right here where the suit is, I'm going to paint in from there, drag. I'm just resampling, holding Alt, resampling from each of these areas and drawing in. Resample from the edge of the suit. Notice that I'm resampling from very small areas, and I'm brushing over these areas in very small strokes because I want it to be very natural. I want it to look very real. I'm matching up the edges of the suit so that it doesn't, so that we can keep the same texture, keep the same shadows and everything like that. Alright, I'm going to pull from this shadow up here, and we're going to draw it in down here. Again, I'm just trying to remove this. We'll do a little bit of cleanup afterwards, but just get it approximately about right. So we can pull a little bit of the shadow from here and kind of draw it across. It's okay if some of the shadow repeats, as long as it looks natural and it looks even. Let's reduce the opacity, or I'm sorry, the sharpness of our brush again, and kind of just so we have a softer graduated edge. I'm just going to kind of soften this shadow right here. And we can do additional blending in a second. So if it doesn't look quite right, that's fine. In this area, this is a small area, and it looks like we can probably get away with just using the clone stamp tool. Let's see if it works. Again, we're still going to follow the same rules. I'm going to follow the same lines, and then we're going to paint across. Now the issue with using the clone stamp tool is you'll notice that basically because the shade in this area is different from the area down here, it looks different. So let's undo that. Let's actually go back and do the same Darken tool that we did. Let's go back and select our Darken clone stamp, and we're going to do the exact same thing because I think we'll get a little better result. So we're just going to copy from up there. We're going to darken, and then it's actually a very similar result, and that makes sense because we're just darkening out the pixels that are there. So what we got to do now is heal out this edge. So we'll select the healing brush. We're going to go up here. We're going to just kind of graduate these little adjustments, these little shifts in tone and graduation down, so it kind of more evenly covers that tone. And probably the better brush for this is the one of our angled brushes. So let's pick the left side angled brush, and what we're going to do is just pick basically a point right here, match that line, and drag across, and it's going to basically nicely kind of create that tone, that graduation across the entire area. Let's do the same thing over here. We're going to kind of mimic this look right here at the top. And that looks about right. We just want to kind of match it approximately. We're going to need to keep switching back to the other tools and just keep adjusting. Again, as I get close to the hair, I want to adjust my hardness up so we can kind of match that edge. Let's see, let's go down. again, these lighter areas aren't being adjusted, so we might need to switch to the lighten tool so that it kind of lightens up the suit as well as we go over these areas. And then we are going to switch back to the darken again. So let's lighten up this area again, lighten up this suit over here, and then let's go back to the darken effect. And now we have a nice matching effect down here on the hair. Okay, so we've done pretty decently on that arm. Let's finish cleaning up this little gap in the suit. We're going to go back to actually the clone stamp tool, just set to normal. Again, let's clone stamp in this this little background that's been blurred out. Make sure our suit looks alright. Let's zoom out a bit, make sure it looks okay. If we feel like it looks a little bit funky, then just pick a small healing brush and go over this just kind of small areas where you feel like it needs to be blended a little bit more. Again, keep that brush small because you don't want it to pick up basically edges and blend these edges of high contrast. So we're kind of keeping it small. All right, that looks pretty fine right there. Again, remember, at any normal size, if it's not noticeable, it's fine. It doesn't need to be absolutely perfect. And for the sake of this tutorial not taking more than 45 minutes, we're going to not exactly go that detailed. Alright, we're going to do the same thing here. We're going to switch back to our clone stamp tool, go to darken again. We're going to do the same thing by clicking on a point, move it down, make sure our hardness is up to where we need it, about 50%. And then I'm going to shrink this down just a tiny bit. Let's match up the line, and then we're going to draw over that hair. The areas that didn't get fixed because they're darker, we're going to switch to this tool, the healing brush tool, and we're going to go over those areas individually. Just make sure that they kind of blend. Go over this. Again, if you get that blending right there, we're going to need to basically clone it out. So you can see how basically we have to do kind of just a mixture of all these different tools to get the effect. Again, I'm darkening out those areas. Alright, now let's check out the suit. There looks like there's a little bit of a rough edge right here. We can fix that rough edge just by kind of cloning in edges from other places. So we can kind of clone in the edge from above the suit. We can also just basically, if I just take that clone stamp tool and I reduce the hardness and just run this along the edge. Whoops, let's set it to normal. I run this along the edge, it's going to also smooth out that edge right there. And that's fine too. Good enough. Let's move down to the right side. We're going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to be going between the different tools. I'm going to speed this up so that you guys don't have to sit through all of it. Alright, so now if we zoom out, we can check out that the outside of the hair looks pretty decent. We've done the same exact techniques. The suit looks good. It doesn't look like we've basically cloned it in, which we have. And none of the kind of annoying strands of hair are still present in the in this kind of dark area in front of the suit. Let's just do a bit of cleanup on this side. This side's going to be much more simple. We're just going to do kind of basic healing, and we can kind of do the same thing with this. You see there's that bright edge right along. There's that bright edge right along her veil. It might make it a little bit tricky using kind of the healing brush tool. So let's first use the clone stamp tool. We'll set it to darken since this area is lighter than the background area, and we're going to just drag that over here. Once again, let's set our brush opacity up to about 50% so that we don't have to. We can keep that nice edge on the veil. and then let's just drag over it. Now the only pixels that weren't affected were the ones that were darker than the background. So let's do this. Let's go to lighten. We'll just switch the brush setting. This time we're going to go up to 50%. Again, let's keep the well, the hardness is actually fine where it's at, because what's going to happen is since the veil is actually lighter than the background, we're not going to really be affecting the veil if we get close to it. So we don't have to worry too much about the veil. So I just want to kind of paint this edge of the hair out as we go. We can adjust the opacity if we need to, but we don't really need to, so that's fine. We just do it over a couple times. And then the last thing, that little tiny bit right there, I'm just going to grab my clone stamp tool, set it to normal, and then we're just going to click right next to it and just kind of clone that out under normal settings. Let's turn the opacity up actually, and let's do the hardness up. We're going to clone from the edge of the veil, and we're going to match that edge right here, and we're just going to bring it up a little bit. Kind of match it right there as well. If there's any funkiness, like we see a tiny bit here, we can just kind of pull it from over here. You can just kind of heal it out. This is probably the best tool actually, is just to heal that out. Let's choose an area of the line that's similar, like right here. Go down and just go straight up, and it's gone. Alright, same thing right here. If we see a little bit of the line still, we can go right there, pull it up, and it's gone. Alright, so we're going to do the same thing here. Let's choose a brush angle that's a little bit better. We're going to choose this left angle. Let's do the exact same thing right here actually. Let's pick the edge of this veil. We're going to match it up right here, and then we're just going to paint that veil out. Let's do it one more time. Make sure we match up that line a little better. There we go. Okay, we're just going to paint that hair out, and it's going to add the veil where it needs to be. If it is a little bit off in the bokeh, then all we got to do is just keep on that healing brush, shrink it down a little bit, and just kind of go over the bokeh to smooth it out in that area. If you feel like these strands of hair are a little bit annoying, you guys can do the exact same thing. We would just pick that edge right there. Whoops, match the edge up actually. That's the only thing that's a little bit annoying about having these skinny brushes, is that sometimes it's a little bit hard to kind of see the edge that you're creating. But once you get used to it, it's fine. Alright, we're just kind of cloning and adding back, and that's fine right there. I might just add a little bit of this veil so it doesn't look like it just kind of ends abruptly right there. That looks good enough. I mean, you're not going to really be able to notice that little tiny edge. If you guys want to fix that, that's fine. Let's just move on. You guys understand the point. Same thing here. Grab that edge. We're going to pull it out one more time. Pull it out. There we go. Same thing here. Grab the edge, pull it out. And we're going to start from right here. Grab this and pull it out. Actually, this is probably a situation where going under is a little bit better. Let's go underneath it. Grab that white and just heal it all in. Grab above, heal that in, and that's fine. Now most of the distracting hair anywhere outside is removed. These strands on the inside, if you feel like they're super distracting, that's fine. I think they're fine. It's just kind of part of the hairstyle. Let's clean up some of the stuff in the face. Now, one thing I want to do is I'm going to set the, let's go back to our clone stamp tool, and we're going to set it to darken. Let's go back to our darken clone stamp brush, or actually, I'm sorry, let's go to our lighten. Now I want to basically lighten out some of the stray hairs. Now this is a very clean hairline on the forehead, but a lot of times there's a lot of stray hairs that you don't want to notice, you don't want to see in that final image on your hairline on the forehead or around the eyes and stuff like that. So a way to get to that out is just switch back to that lighten clone stamp. You can adjust the opacity a little bit up if you want, say 50%. Leave still a very soft edge on it. Sample from the highlight area and just kind of paint over those hair details that you don't want to be visible. So we're just going to paint over this area a little bit and just kind of brighten it up. And make sure that your hardness is still set to 0, and that's fine where it's at. Just kind of make sure that there's no strange patchiness in the hair, and that's fine where it is. If I want, I'm going to remove some of these darker strands of hair just with my, let's actually do it with a spot healing. Spot healing should do a pretty good job of it. Let's select a left angle. Let's zoom in and select a brush size that's just right. Actually, you know what, let's select our flat brush. I think it'll be a little bit easier. We're going to go with a size that's just right. Let's increase the hardness just a tiny bit because I don't want the edges to be too feathered. And then I'm just going to pull it down right over that strand of hair. I'm going to just resample a couple times just to make sure it gets it out. Whatever it doesn't clean up quite right, we can just kind of fix up with our clone or just our regular healing brush. Alright, so let's clean this up just a tiny bit. All I'm going to do is just, you know what, let's just heal this out with a regular healing brush. So let's set our healing brush to a flat angle, and let's just sample from this area and just go underneath those edges. Sample from this area. We want to kind of keep that shade here because I don't want to lighten up that shadow underneath the hair, otherwise it's going to look unnatural. So I'm going to keep those shadows there. I'm going to do the same thing with this side. I'm just going to heal that strand out. I'm going to pick a area of the shadow and heal this strand out as well. And just get it kind of so it's less, just a little bit diminished. If we want to heal out some of these lines, again, the easiest way probably is to, well, we can do a little bit of, I think the heal brush tool should probably be the best option. And what I would do is pick a left angle brush, and then you want to kind of start over the shadowy area, drag it over, and it should be fine. We can kind of remove some of these hairs just by kind of clicking and dragging again. And we're kind of just lightening up these lines on the forehead. These hairs aren't super distracting, which is why I'm not removing them all, because it's fine. You can see how these, when we have a line like this we want to remove, again, we want to start right here on that hairline. We want to pull the hairline down, go to the right, and then go to the left, and that matches that hair piece. We got a little bit of this cloned in, so let's remove that. So that that line is gone, but then the hair strand is still there. Okay, so you can see that these strands right here are very noticeable in the hair right above her bangs. So if we remove these strands here, we need to remove them up here as well, otherwise it's going to look unnatural. They're not super distracting, so I'm just going to leave them. The only hair left that's really distracting is this one right here. It goes right over the eye, and probably the best tool for this, I mean, you guys can try and heal it out if you guys want. What I would probably do is start with the clone stamp tool, set it to normal. You're going to set the opacity to 100%. We're going to go to actually we can leave the brush not that hard, so let's leave the brush at that hardness. We're going to shrink this down though. We're going to click right next to it, right over the iris that's really dark and shaded, and we're just going to drag up with it. We want to get very close to this strand because we want to make sure that the skin tones right next to it match the same color and the same shade. Again, we're going to click on the right side, just remove this little bit that was cloned in. Do the same thing right here with the hair. Remove this little bit right there. Do the same thing above on the eyebrow. And then that should be about right. All we got to do is do a little bit of tiny cleanup now. So let's just, all we're going to do is select our healing brush tool. And we're just going to go over our skin right here. And let's just shrink down this brush and just kind of even out this tone by just sampling from right next to it, clicking there. That'll just even out the tone a little bit. If the eyelashes look unnatural to you, well, what you can do is just kind of clone in some of the eyelashes from kind of nearby. So we can grab this one and kind of just paint that one in a little bit, grab this one, paint that one. Sorry, grab this one and just kind of paint over. I'm really pretty fine with that. If you guys want to add more eyelashes, you can. There's actually, you can paint in eyelashes. I'm not a big fan of painting in eyelashes because I feel like it is kind of noticeable, unless you're dealing with, like, you know, high fashion type stuff. So let's avoid that. I'm going to undo that, and then let's go back to our healing brush. Same setting. We're just going to kind of even out these tones right here where that hair was going over. And that's great. I think it looks fine like that. Let's zoom back out. And let's check out the before and the after. Here is the before, and here is the after with that strands of hair, all the details kind of cleaned up. So you can see it's a really noticeable difference. It does take quite a bit of time, which means that the more time you can spend in front of the camera getting it right, as well as, you know, the cleaner it was shot, it's going to save you a lot of time in post-production. But that is how you would clean up stray hairs and kind of the details of your image using all of the healing and cloning tools that we've learned so far. In the next tutorial, we're going to enhance and sharpen our details.